right. Good.
Well, welcome everybody to a kitchen sink live croscopy, or should we say a kitchen sink memoriam.
Mm-hmm.
My dad passed away Tuesday, and I just flew back yesterday, not even 24 hours ago. Uh, so I'm surprised I'm upright. Um, but here I am in my old room from when I was a kid and cleaning up.
Hmm.
It's a lot to clean up.
I can imagine. How are you holding up?
uh, Mostly okay. I was, he fell, died on the floor peacefully. They said the caregivers that found him. And so when I arrived, there were a bunch of nickels like on the floor, and I was like, well, it's not like Dad was carrying money around the house, right? Like, what's this from? And then I saw, his cane must have fallen or something, because the little rubber part that you put on the bottom of a cane that was lying on the ground too. And I picked that up, and there was a nickel inside it. I was like, oh, he was making the cane taller.
Oh.
And just at that moment, like Disturbed's version of Sound of Silence was on, and I just started crying out of nowhere. And like it was just something about like picturing my dad falling at that moment. And I don't know, like, yeah, and like I grew up listening to Simon and Garfunkel records with Dad, and
Oh, geez.
Sound of Silence is like, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's silent in the house, which is totally unusual, because anyone who knows my dad knows that he was always telling a story.
Yes, yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, speaking of that, I figured what better tribute to my dad than telling a shit ton of stories and never shutting up until a wife or girlfriend tells us we need to shut up, and then about an hour later we'll quit.
That's the thing about your dad. Like, I talked to him in various capacities, like, when we were running the business together, and he would stop by and hang out sometimes. But there were times where I'd go over to where you are now to help him with something like computer related or whatever. There were a couple of things, and yeah, that was the thing. It's like he had a story for literally every situation. And like you'd be like, okay, well, I got to get going, and he would just continue with the stories and like build and build. I mean, it's kind of like how our show operates too.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we go from one thing to another.
that was a human YouTube. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you fall down this rabbit hole, like.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like man, he had so many stories though. Like,
oh yeah, like I like I don't want it to sound like I was like annoyed by this or anything, but it was sometimes hard to tell him about what's going on in my life, because I'd start telling the story about something that happened, and it would trigger a memory that was related. It's like, you might like this related video, but in dad speak,
yeah, exactly.
and all of a sudden you're off on this tangent, and like 35 minutes later you're sitting there going, why are we talking about rabbits? What? Like, what?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to begin with the amount of stories that he would tell, like the most.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what like ranks as number one. But
Like I think he might have told me the one, the would you believe when he got pulled over.
yeah. Yeah, if anyone is old enough to remember Get Smart, even in reruns, that still makes you pretty old. My dad did a pretty good impression of Maxwell Smart from from the show. Don Adams, I think the actor's name was.
I think so, yeah.
I think he also voiced Inspector Gadget, right?
I believe so, yep.
It was kind
They
of
were kind
based
of
on,
similar.
yeah.
In fact, I think Inspector Gadget was modeled after
Get Smart.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, my dad was like driving, an old muscle car, and was turning out of a parking lot and just kind of gunned it and peeled out, burned some rubber, and a cop happened to be driving right by at the time and pulled him over. And the cop walks up to the window and says, all pissed off, he's like, do you know how crazy you're driving and how fast you're going and how dangerous that is? And Dad was like, would you believe my foot slipped off the brake and hit the gas? And he was like, well, I guess I can believe that, but don't do that again.
Yeah. Well, and from what he told me is like there was more conversation to be had, and so he had to keep up that voice the whole time.
Yep. Unlike my dad, I automatically truncate stories. So my dad had another story about kind of giving a cop a BS story and getting away with it. He was like driving around with my mom in Ruston, of all places, and was looking for a party. So he was trying to see the addresses. So he turned off the headlights so his eyes would adjust to the dark a little bit. And he could see the house numbers better. And of course, a Ruston cop pulls him over.
The one cop in Ruston, mind
Right.
you.
Yeah. Still, they're ever vigilant, or but this was in the 70s, back when you had to get out and walk up to the officer. Whereas now it's they want the higher ground. And so my dad was like, okay. He tells my mom, like, when you see me like come over and pound on the hood, reach over and turn on the lights. And he gets out and he's saying to the cop, like, oh, what's wrong? He's like, you're driving around with your headlights off. And he was like, oh man, I thought I had that fixed. Hang on a second. Bam. Like, headlights come on. He's like, okay, well, get that wiring fixed.
That's genius, man. That's some quick thinking too.
Yeah. I was just thinking, like, I was looking through some pictures, and like my dad was kind of a smooth criminal sometimes.
Bit of a rebel.
Yeah. I remember this time we had a crack house next door in North Tacoma, which is like pretty chill, right?
Yeah, that's unusual for North Tacoma.
They had a bunch of birdhouses out front, and that was like their signal, I think.
Oh, weren't they? I remember that. Weren't they hiding drugs in the birdhouses?
I think so.
It was like they would put things in the birdhouses, and then somebody would come up and take it out and put money in or something like that.
What kind of honor system is that with drug addicts, though? Like,
well, no, dealers. I think they were producing things,
dealers.
And dealers would come, and so it's like, well, if you don't pay for something, they're never gonna sell to you again.
Right.
But
when they had moved in, they, like, of course, wanted a lot of privacy, so they built this super tall fence along our property line that was like not within code whatsoever, and it was like there was like overhangs onto our property with like runoff and stuff, just like a bunch of water pouring over, and when it would rain. And my I remember this because I saw all these pictures that my dad took, and he like waited for them to leave and then hopped the fence and started taking all these pictures. And then he heard them coming back, and he like hopped the fence again real quick. But on our side of the fence, like, there was a little hill coming down, and he like rolled his ankle.
Oh no.
But they didn't find him.
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely good. Yeah, I do remember the birdhouse house. Like that was, yeah, I mean, it was like kind of on, like, right on the fairly main road, right? Like,
and right next to an elementary school.
yeah.
And once they well, pretty sure they robbed us, and then not too long after that they moved. um and we were driving around in South Tacoma one day, a little bit later, a few months later maybe, and we see a house with a shit ton of birdhouses out in front of it. It's like, okay, this can only be the crack dealers.
It's the same people, yeah.
And of course, it was right across the street from another elementary school.
Man.
And so we went in and talked to the principal, and the birdhouses were not there. A while later, I think they had to pack up and move again. Probably got a little bit too much heat on.
Probably. Yeah. Man, that's funny.
It's shit like that like I really admired about my dad at that age, because I was all into like Batman at the time, and that was such a Batman thing to do, right? Like,
oh yeah,
regular guy fighting crime,
mm-hmm. Yeah, and being ballsy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's definitely your dad.
Oh yeah. I mean, talk about Batman shit. Like, my dad was the only one sticking up for me at Catholic school when I would get picked on.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he did a good job of it, because he was like really buff at the time. He was benching like 500.
Jesus.
And so he was big, intimidating, and whenever there was an issue that was just intractable for me, he would come in and take care of things. And I can remember one time in the 6th grade, like they would like keep breaking into my locker and stealing my books, and I couldn't do my homework without my books.
Of course. Yeah.
And I got in trouble for not doing my homework because the books were stolen, and the teacher was like, well, that's not my problem, it's your problem.
Jeez.
And so my dad, hearing about that, came in like right after school. There was a few students left, because we would like rotate like sweeping up duty and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So there was a few student witnesses to this. My dad comes in a sleeveless shirt, all buff, mm-hmm. yelling and screaming at this teacher about, like, this is bullshit, like a kid gets their book stolen and you're doing nothing about it. And they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. And he's like, I'll show you what you can do. And he walks out into the hallway and just starts ripping the lockers open, like breaking locks and stuff, like Lou Ferrigno in The Incredible Hulk. He's just ripping all these lockers open. All these kids are in the hallway or like peeking out of the classrooms, like, what's going on here?
Oh, dude, and word probably got around very quickly.
Yeah,
dude, this dude, the Hulk is coming down on you, man.
and he found the books. So like the teacher was all like, well, there's nothing we can do. And he just goes and like breaks into every other locker until he finds them.
Like, here they are.
Yeah. And so he hands me my books and I put them in my bag and we walk out, and it's a small hallway. So like we're walking down the hallway and it was just like the end of a Bruce Willis film. Like my dad's just got both arms out, like slamming the locker doors shut as he goes, like, bam, bam, bam. Oh man. And the next day, man, I heard about it. They were like, your dad was like ripping lockers open. What is some kind of like monster? Like,
oh my god. Yeah, I never got.
No wonder I still got picked on after that. Like,
I know. I never got to see that side of your dad. He was always like a pretty mellow person. I remember
caseless ammunition.
Yeah. So
20,
your dad
22 caliber.
It's 22. Yeah. Your dad gave me a box of that. And apparently long ago, there was this little like pistol or rifle that was electronically fired. And those were the cartridges you'd stick in. And it would use like some kind of igniter to light that on fire. It's probably, I would say, more akin to like an air gun than like an actual gun. But it was a really novel thing. And I remember I was over there working on something, helping your dad fix something, and he gave me a box of that, which I still have. And actually, my air compressor he gave me.
Yep, I remember
Yep.
that.
Yep.
That's come in handy quite a few
Oh
times.
God, yeah. Like having an air compressor, man, that's a game changer, honestly. But yeah, that came from your dad. I think in exchange for doing some computer something or other.
I and he was like, as he liked to say, the original Mr. Mom.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed home and took care of me while my mom worked was basically the breadwinner. Like he would work in the evenings when my mom was home. So they never had to do the daycare thing or hardly ever use a babysitter or drop me at the grandparents or whatever. But um, like that was pretty cool to have a buddy around all the time,
Yeah.
being raised as an only child and everything.
Well, and being adopted too, like
Yeah.
that, it I'm sure it helped.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for his generation, that's a distinct change from the normal pattern.
Yep.
And I think that's beneficial too. Like that certainly helps having like a father figure who's present a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely lucked out, um, being adopted by my parents and, getting the values that they instilled in me and having that kind of a role model that broke the gender barriers and stuff
Mm-hmm.
with regards to like who stays home with the kids and stuff,
Yeah.
who earns the most money, and it like never even phased him.
Mm-hmm.
There was never any like emasculated feelings or anything that he was
Well, no,
expressing.
not when your dad's the fucking Hulk.
Right.
Like, what are you gonna do?
there was um there was a particular incident at Sherry's that my dad got involved in when I wasn't there. Uh, Pretty similar to the locker thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was a bit of a punk teenager. Not
As
the
I'm
worst.
sure your dad probably was too.
Yeah, wasn't the worst, but I did get into my fair share of calamity, and there was a point where we kind of got in trouble for something, and I copped up and said, yeah, yeah, I did that. I'm gonna like take responsibility for it. But nobody else that was involved did, and they were trying really hard to maintain the lie to their parents, and so it created this situation where I was kind of all alone in my late teens, with just very few friends that uh, didn't side with the liars,
Mm-hmm.
because like that was kind of like an eye-opening moment for me with a lot of people that like honor and integrity and like taking responsibility for your own actions took a back seat to like self-preservation for these people,
Mm-hmm.
and loyalty to themselves more than this idea of, well, we even did an episode on like people tattletaling and ratting and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that was like season one,
Yeah.
but like, and of course people mature over the years, and I we've even had some of those people on the show actually, uh, one person in particular. So I can get back onto track here and not get off onto some other story. Um, During that tumultuous time, I was at the gas station filling up my van, and this friend of ours that I knew was walking across the street, and he was coming with a guy I'd never seen before. And he was on the other side, let's say, at that time. Uh, and so I was, a little wary, but I walked in, I paid for my gas, and I come out, and they confront me at the door of the gas station. And the guy I'd never seen before said, I forget what he said. It doesn't matter, but he took a swing at me, and I ducked it. And I went over toward my van. He was following me, and I just turned around and pulled out my knife. It was like a 5-inch blade. Actually, I think I have it around here somewhere. Anyway, I just found it.
Props for the story. Nice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they took off. But yep. Yep. Here it is. Yeah. Look at that.
Oh yeah.
You'd run from that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's not a knife.
Right. So later that night, I told my dad about it, and I went in to my dad's work and told him the story. And he was like, "What?" And he didn't even like clock out. He just walked right out of the store, across the parking lot, went into Sherry's, and called out like all those motherfuckers. And they all go outside. And I was kind of like staying back. I was like, I don't want them to think like I just sicked my dad on them. He's on his own, like he's doing his own thing. And I knew he could hold his own. So I was just like watching from a safe distance. And a guy that we've had on the show said something to him that pissed him off. And he said something like, well, Casey shouldn't have been talking shit or something. And my dad just like looked over and grabbed him by the shirt and like lifted him up. It was like, oh god.
Oh man.
I wonder if he's watching now. Maybe he can tell the story from his perspective. That would be pretty funny. Dad, are you out there?
Oh man.
Yeah, so it took a while to live that one down, but eventually all those things flow under the bridge, and that's that talk.
Nice. Oh
Yeah.
dude, I love that knife, even though it's like practically not that useful, but it just looks cool.
Like this one's a real one. I have an aircraft aluminum mechlith that's totally worthless in battle, but like this, you could actually kill a motherfucker with.
Oh, you could, but the little side things, it's more of a like a gimmick to terrify somebody, because like you pull out a knife and then more knives come out of that knife. That's a very Klingon thing.
Yeah. But had that up on display here on this shelf. And I used to have a chair sitting right here, and I was sitting doing my homework one day when I was like in community college, and all of a sudden, like I hear this, the house kind of starting to shake, and I was like, "Oh man, is my dad pissed off about something again? I better go see what's going on." So you turning into the Hulk again. I walk out, and he's like asleep on the couch, and I was like, "Oh, it's an earthquake." And not like a totally bad one, but I come back into my room, and the Klingon knife had plunged into the seat right where I was sitting.
Oh,
geez. Standing up like this, and I was like, "Oh, well, good thing I stood up."
I guess so. Jesus, man. Oh my god.
Secure dangerous weapons in the event of an earthquake.
Yes, maybe don't have the blades bladed things above your head on the walls.
And of course I just put it right back up there for 25 years
and sat back down in the chair and got back to work. Oh man.
But there's no chair over there now, so
yeah. So
at least one thing. Oh yeah, my dad loved video games. Like to the day he died, he was always playing video games. Like he was more into it than I ever was. Like I remember coming home from school and he'd be like, I beat the Legend of Zelda today, like start to finish in the time you were at school. What?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
impressive. I think it took me, like, I gave up trying to beat it when I was a kid, and only as an adult did I end up beating it.
Oh wow.
Like, I played and played and played and could not be, like, I just got super frustrated by the time you get to like the, like the seventh dungeon. It's like, oh my god, you're throwing the controller and
I can't
it's
remember
like
if it was the first Legend of Zelda or the first one that was on the Super Nintendo. I think it was the Super Nintendo. Up in the
okay.
northeast corner of the map, you could like walk off the screen and like you couldn't see Link anymore, but you could like go up and like walk all the way over like here on the map and then like walk like phase back into the map on this little island to get like a treasure chest or something. It was just
Nice.
like a stupid heart, I think. Like,
Hmm.
but I thought that was really cool, and we discovered that by accident together. And
Man,
yeah, a lot
my
of good memories playing games with dad.
it is different for people of that generation to be into video games.
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, like I have friends that have kids, and my friends play the same games that their kids play, like together sometimes.
Yeah.
And that was unheard of. Like my dad, like I remember we had a Nintendo, and my dad, he's like, oh, whatever, salty marine and stuff, and wasn't into video games. But like, I remember coming home from school one day, and my dad's sitting in the little side room where we had our TV and a couch and stuff, and he's in there, and he's got the controller in his hand, and he's playing Super Mario Brothers, and he's like super into it, like, oh, so you do like NES after all.
Nice. He was like a closet video game player.
Yeah, exactly. uh,
I play video games with my stepdaughter and I love it. Like,
mhm.
I'm not like good at them necessarily anymore,
Mhm.
because times have changed and they're a little more advanced these days. But it's always a good time and there's always laughter. And anytime you find a chance to capture laughter, it's worth every minute spent on it. So
Well, and you had to be present with your kids, which it sounds like your dad definitely was very
oh
present
yeah, oh yeah,
and involved, and helped mold you into the person you are today.
yep, definitely not like uh oh, here's a great story. um it's more my story, but based on my dad. When my dad was the lead singer of the church, they had this loft in the back of the church where the choir was, and uh, I have a lot of fond memories of going up there with him rather than being down in the pews where it was all boring. Be up there and see my dad being like the rock star at the church. Only not really. It was a Catholic church, not a Christian church, where they actually do kind of rock sometimes.
Yep,
There was no rocking in the Catholic church.
no,
Um,
be solemn,
yeah,
grim up, everybody.
but I was so into music because of him, and I would, and I had a piano in my room, and I would always like, I taught myself to play by ear, and with his help, of course. Um, and he also taught himself how to play by ear. Uh, I would actually get to the point as a kid where I knew what a note sounded like in my head, like
Mhm.
like the pitch exactly where it should be and whatnot, and also had a little bit of knowledge of chord structure and so on. So I would be sitting there with blank sheet music while my dad was singing, and I would just be like writing down notes and coming up with songs in my head
Hmm.
in between the songs that the choir was doing. Um, and I ended up writing like a whole concerto. It was probably crap. Like for a 9-year-old to like write a concerto. I mean, like, I'm not saying I'm up there with Mozart, but up there with Mozart. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm wondering.
Probably better than Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I mean, come on.
Yeah, probably. Are there recordings of your dad singing? Because I think that would be a great thing. Because obviously we can't put stuff in live.
Yeah, I do want to. I do want to re-release this and edit it a little bit and kind of throw in some of that stuff once I come across it, because there are some recordings that he did.
Maybe some photos too at the same time, like some singing and photos. And that'd be an awesome thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad was one of the probably one of the first people to do this too. At their wedding, he sang while my mom was walking down the aisle. Like, he's up at the front of the church with no microphone, and my aunt was playing the organ, but there was let's say an acoustic problem they couldn't get around, where there was latency from the back of the church to where he was. They couldn't sync up quite right. So he just said, well, nix the organ then. And he just sang a cappella while my mom walked down the aisle.
Oh, wow.
And so for my parents' 50th anniversary last December, I put together a party, and I played for them a recording of that very song that I made on like a karaoke app, and that felt like a special moment, at least for me.
I'm sure it was for them too.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're both not like the type to talk about that kind of stuff. That's stuff that is unique to me in this family, let's say. Because not everything you get from your parents. Well, I mean, like, I'm adopted, so of course not everything you get from those parents, right?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Nature and nurture.
Yep.
Thank you all for coming. I didn't prepare anything. That's not my style. I'm just going to give you a few of the top thoughts I have about my dad. What a wonderful guy he was. I guess I'll start from the beginning. My parents adopted me, and if there are several types of love in this world, I feel like you really can't top the love of choosing someone and loving them as if they were your own biological child. It's a special feeling. And they never hid that from me, so it was never a shock. And they were always very supportive of me in all of my interests, which included becoming a detective someday to find my biological parents. And they never once deterred me from that goal, which eventually I did achieve. And I got to exponentially increase my family in my life, and they all got along, and it was great. Everybody got along with my dad, though. I don't think it was possible for him to have an enemy. Everybody seems to have kind words to say about him, and of course, how much he loved to tell stories. And in that honor, if you saw in the entryway there, I bought some cards with dad jokes on them. And if you want to look through those, and if one reminds you of a story of dad, go ahead and stick it in the book and write your story. And I think that's a perfect tribute to the greatest storyteller there ever was. like he instilled in me a great sense of morality and honor, love of music. I tell you, going through the house has been really hard, finding all the memories and the things that defined our relationship together. So it was a life well lived and a legacy etched in the halls of this very church where he sang as my mom walked down the aisle when they got married. That's in essence who my dad was to me, and I'll always be grateful for the chance to have been adopted by such a great family, which includes all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Casey. Great tribute to your dad.
Casey mentioned Jerry's love of music and his desire, to fill the churches with his musical voice, which he did. So he's going to do that for us today, right now, with this song, which is on the CD. So this is Jerry.
I've never had someone sing at their own funeral until today. That I just thought of that. It's really wonderful.
Deep sea diving into Jerry Rochefort's life.
Yep. Like essentially, in a way, an origin point of this very show.
Oh, for sure. For sure.